So today I'm in Sean's house. I'm going to give a little
Salam. Yeah, my name's Sean Oakley. Obviously Joseph is a very committed Zionist. I'm a bit more on the other side of the fence in that I'm a press officer for the local branch of the PSC.
Salam. My name is Muhammad Abdul. I'm known by many Nomdigirs, but yeah, Muhammad will do for the Muhammad can do for this particular conversation. I'm related to Sean. He's married to my sister, so we're brothers in that sense. We're family. Obviously, he's introduced me to Brother Joseph here, who I've met for the first time, and it's going well. I love looks when we're in London, right? When Jews and Muslims are together, and everyone's like, "Why aren't they fighting?" I was like,
You think you know that? I walk around with your sister all day, bro. It's like a job, yeah.
It's like does not compute.
But for those that didn't catch that, Sean's from a Jew.
So that's kind of my background. I've been involved as a khatib, and I have served as an imam for a number of years, and I've also worked as a journalist in the Middle East. I speak Arabic and translate, and it's just obviously for me personally, I think having a mature approach to the question of peace within the Holy Lands for me is something which is of central importance.
A lifelong pursuit, definitely. And should we say a bit more about our backgrounds, like where we're from and things like that?
I'm just going to dive straight in with the obvious question that everyone that's watching this, from my views at least, will be asking. So you're from a Jewish background and you converted to Islam. Forget the small talk.
What's going on there?
Well, we can go into small talk after the elephant in the room has been But it's it was. Well, we were chatting about it a bit about earlier, weren't we? And at university, I went through a bit of a roundabout journey. As a child, my family, I'd say my upbringing was very kind of libertarian, almost. My parents were always like, even if religiously they weren't very practicing, I'll be honest with you, But they said, what we really believe at the end of the day is just whatever you find gives you peace, spiritual or otherwise. If that's what you choose, like do you, Yeah. But about the time I started sixth form, I'd say I went, me as a hardcore atheist man. I think a lot of Jews actually I've met have been kind of gone down that path too. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. So from about 16 to 19, I was like really the whole Richard Dawkins thing, like our religion is nonsense, it's all superstition, blah blah blah. And my second year of university, I branched out a little bit, and I suddenly started getting more interested in like Buddhism, and that opened the door to kind of mysticism and just, in a way, not allowing my idea of religion to be defined by the religious right, like religious extremists of any variety, right? Yeah. And because they're often the most vocal, and but anyway. Hassan
al-Basri said it best. He said the empty vessel rings loudest when struck.
Yeah. As that happened, within Islam, I became very attracted to kind of Sufi Islam, and about this time when this part of my life was happening, I met Baath's sister. I got over the course of the Gaza marches. Just throwing the extra bit of controversy. During Operation Protective Edge, I would say my political eyes were kind of opening a bit. I was just trying to get involved and trying to understand the Israeli-Palestinian issue a bit more. I was generally very critical of the offensive in Gaza because I felt it was just totally disproportionate and it could just been handled at least much better than it was. I don't know, like that was my view. But and after that, I took my Shahada soon after.
With this conversation, obviously for my viewers, it's a very delicate one because you have a range of opinions here. I think what we're all going to try and do is try and be as sensitive to each other's backgrounds as we possibly can. So please don't go crazy in the comment section.
He says, don't know.
I'm pretty thick skinned. In the past, people have said that the religious element of the conflict maybe is what is protracting it, like making it worse, and that by focusing on the political element to it, like they say, it's about land control and things like that. That will bring about peace because there's a more pragmatic conversation. Well,
so one of the things I've experienced, I've been through many different phases. So at first, I used to say that the conflict, it's all about land. It's just you've got two people war. But then when you start speaking to the people on the ground, so if you go to Hebron and you speak to the Arabs who live in Hebron, you speak to the Jews who live in Hebron. So just for people, Hebron is considered a settlement by many pro-Palestinian activists, and when you look at the Arabs who live in Hebron, they vote overwhelmingly for Hamas. So you've got a community which perceived by some as being settlers, they tend to have strong religious convictions in many instances on the Jewish side, and you've got Arabs who overwhelmingly in the West Bank, Fatah is the leading party.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
within
West Bank,
Hebron,
Fatah, yeah.
it's Hamas. So you've got two people which are very religious living in a confined space, and when you speak to them, it's religion. It's not land. And so this is the thing.
So over the cave of the patriarchs and all this.
For me, it's different things for different people. So for some people it's land. For some people it's a religious conflict. I think the huge elephant in the room, and it's the real problem. If you look at all this, in my opinion, if you look at all the states around Israel, there's no opposition to their existence. The only opposition is to Israel, which is a Jewish state, and it's a Jewish state that has sovereignty, kind of, because although it's controlled by the Jordanian Waqf, it has sovereignty over the Temple Mount. No, the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, Masjid al-Aqsa.
It's Waqf Jordani, okay.
Yeah, it's controlled by the Jordanians.
Okay.
And I think if it wasn't for Al-Quds, if it wasn't for Masjid al-Aqsa, it would be much easier to find peace. And I think that's the it's not religion in isolation, but I think when you're looking at the huge opposition to the existence of a Jewish state in that region, it's not just the existence of a Jewish state in that region, it's the existence to a Jewish state that has sovereignty over
Aqsa. Over Aqsa itself. I mean, the thing is, I mean,
not just over Quds, I think maybe over, because my own conversations with a lot of people, what they object to maybe is the idea, not so much the idea of a Jewish population in Israel, because they often talk about the post-Palestinian activists, more sane ones anyway, which I think is the majority of them, will say, that before the state of Israel there were Jewish people in the region, and we have no problem with that in theory. It's this idea, which, as they see it, that Zionism is not just about Jewish habitation there, but the idea of Jewish supremacy, over other peoples or religions in the region, right?
And this is it. And the line I get all the time, it'll be really interesting to get both of your takes on this. The line I get all the time is, Jews and Muslims coexisted perfectly for 1400 years, and then the state of Israel...
Don't worry.
This is...
Smina can say hello.
No frills, no...
This is life in a real house. I wish this was a studio, but it really is a house, man.
And so... 1400 years of coexistence, but the thing that sticks in the throat for most Jews is, for many of those years it was really, really good, but it was
When was it bad?
You're saying it's the opposite.
So we were always under, we always paid the jizya, and that may have afforded us certain protections under certain caliphs, but we were always under. And we see ourselves as equals. We see ourselves as cousins. We see ourselves as progeny of the children of Ibrahim.
I have to ask the obvious question. Ibrahim alayhi salam, and look, we're done now. For me, this might shock people. Agree or not agree, we have the same lineage. We come from our father Abraham. We were talking about this. This man,
hence the good looks. Look at us, guys.
We all got the same you've got milk chocolate. You've got dark chocolate here. You can take your pick, right? But what I was going to say is. The real, on that part, that's undeniable, and that's the saddest thing for me of the conflict, is when families fight, it tends to be destructive.
Yeah.
The civil conflict, I've seen civil conflict up front, and it's the most destructive, because
maybe we know each other so well, we know where to really hit them, you know?
Yeah, there's that, but I mean, like I said, the point is, blood is supposed to connect, not to divide.
Yeah.
And for me, one of my favourite, actually, I could go in there, but I need to address the point and ask you a question. Do you feel, in your mind, that the Arabs are equals in the modern state of Israel?
So I'm gonna...
As it stands today.
In the state of Israel, so I'm not talking about Gaza and the West Bank.
No, in Israel.
So in Israel, 100% equality. As I mentioned off camera before, you have Salem Gibran, an Israeli Arab who sent a Jewish prime minister and a Jewish president.
Well, isn't it 100% maybe a bit... I mean, I think this is what turns off some people, like this idea of... You could say that there's equality on a level equivalent to most liberal democracies, maybe, but 100% equality? I mean, that hyperbolic rhetoric is, I think, what turns off some people. Because even
fine. I'll take... In terms of a liberal democracy, I would say there's complete equality.
Because even here we have, we'd say that we have racism
you have different financial groups. So the Haredi group, the ultra-Orthodox Jews are the poorest.
Generally speaking,
but then the Arabs above them. But then even within the Arabs, you have the Christian Arabs, and they're the best performing religious group there is in the country. So there isn't complete equality, and there isn't complete equality.
But there isn't complete. Well, we're in England.
I know something quite interesting from the new. I think it was the New Israel Fund or something recently, which was that actually they were trying to give us reason for hope, right? And they were saying that within Israel proper, they're saying that actually some progress has actually been made. Like in the past few decades, they're saying that the amount of funding proportionally that goes to kind of Arab communities or Arab schools has gone up rather than down.
Okay, I would have to ask the question though. For me, I would personally say, having spoken to many Palestinians, obviously, as a Muslim with some Arab lineage, there is a personal connection here. But obviously, for me, the religious angle, I went back to that after making the pro point. I personally don't believe that anyone can claim right to equality until the right of return is seriously discussed. I do understand. Just bring it up. I do understand for some of the Jewish community in Israel, the fear is the swamp of Arabs that would come in, right? The
demographic
swamp,
majority,
which would shift.
Yeah.
But I mean, for true equality to exist, at the very least, even if a 50-50 was discussed, then actually, I mean, even though, okay, let's say, okay, you can't have a 70% majority all of a sudden. How's that going to work physically anyway, right? Most of the Arabs are settled in places here, there, and everywhere, but just like the Jewish diaspora has, isn't, even though it's slowly migrating in, it's not a day thing as it's been going on for 60 years. My point is, I do think the discussion of equality the concept of equality doesn't exist until at least you have that right to return for 50-50 at least.
Okay, so I give my perspective on that. So we were talking before, I don't know if it's on camera or off camera, about your family being from Pakistan.
Yeah.
Pakistan, there were 1.5 million people displaced, moved, population transfers.
Yeah.
And there's no right to return for the Hindus that left Pakistan or the Muslims that left India. There's no right to return. No one discussed that, because what happens when these post-colonial, let's call them, states are created?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
The new entities that are created are for those people that have the right to self-determination. So if you're a Muslim and you lost property in India, that's really hard, and that's one of the downsides.
And vice versa.
And exactly, if you're a Hindu and you lost, and I've got a personal friend of mine, his family may have lost property in that move. So what we're saying is, it sounds a very genuine and logical when you just hear, yeah, sure, they must have the right to return. But when you look at the context of how they came to leave, and you look at how the land was then divided, for me, it's not a question of a right to return to Israel. It's if the Palestinians can come to the table and drop the right to return, and actually we can negotiate peace, then 100%, if the Palestinian state is created in the West Bank and Gaza, they have every right to set their immigration policy, just like Israel.
Yeah, because they'll be an independent state.
Yeah.
So basically,
this is the distinction again between the two-state and one-state solution.